Hello everyone, welcome to the second video of the series where we're going to be using Blender and Simple Slicers to get models ready for 3D printing. We're going to go over the basics of modifying and flattening faces so that you can easily print on flat surfaces such as your 3D printer, whether it's FDM printing or resin printing. If you haven't watched the first video of this series, I'd highly encourage you to go back because we describe what software we're using and the free plugins that are essential for getting this right. This process has saved me hours of time, and I highly encourage you to also follow these simple steps so that you can make a successful 3D printer business or objects for your own personal use. In the first video, we got a scan ready for 3D printing, which is a common occurrence these days as scanners are more prevalent. And you can go out into the world, scan certain objects, get them ready for 3D printing, modify them, make them your own, sell them through the internet. So it's a very unique and transferable skill to have. Today we're going to be working on another scan that has more definition, and in the description below you'll be able to download the scan and try this for yourself. So let's go ahead and get started by opening Blender. You'll be meted by this little splash page, which you can just click out of. And as usual, we start with Suzanne the monkey, which we can just go ahead and delete. And I will just go ahead and copy, paste the scan that we're working on today. Quick edit from the future. This model is available for free on our Patreon page. It's on our free tier, so go ahead and download it so you can either follow along or practice for homework. Now back to the video. I will go ahead and turn on screencast keys so that you can see which keys I'm hitting with my mouse and my keyboard to make this process easy for you. Here is a scan. This is a scan of a Chinese warrior. And the first thing I will do is get this into the orientation that I am most comfortable with, which is facing me when you hit the numpad 1. So we're going to hit R to rotate around the x-axis by 90 degrees. Next, what I'll do is I'll center this statue over to the world origin by right-clicking, going down to snap, and hitting selection to cursor. There, now I have him in my world cursor, and it's fairly easy to pan around him and feel comfortable about it. You may notice that when I pan and I zoom out, he blinks out of existence here, and that is a clipping issue. Very simple way to deal with this is to go into your view menu on the sidebar and adjust the end of your view by increasing it. I'll just add another 0 and hit enter, and that will increase how far the distance is in your viewport. If you continue to go back, you'll experience the same issue. So you can either continue to increase that clip, or you can just stay close to your model. But I think at 10,000 millimeters, we're just fine. Next, you'll notice that this model is solid, but the face here at the bottom is not flat, and it has many faces. So one method you could go about this is by selecting all of them and then trying to get them flat, but that is a long and difficult process, which will require more advanced plugins, which we cover in our paid tier of this series. But in this free tier, we're going to do this the very easy way by using Boolean expressions. In the first episode, I cover our Boolean cutoff method using a simple cube, and we're going to go ahead and do that same method. The way we're going to start this off is by making sure this statue is manifold. If your model is not manifold or watertight, he will perform a disappearing act when you do the Boolean expression and that'll be difficult to recover from, and it often ensues panic. In the previous video, I showed you how to remesh a model to decrease the number of vertices and faces so that one, your computer doesn't slow down too much, and two, because we didn't need a whole lot of detail in that model. But what if you want to make a model a little bit more detailed? Now this is going to be limited to your base scan or model, but this can sometimes help bring a little bit more detail out into your model. Let's do that by going into modifiers, which is the little wrench tab. We're going to go to add, search, and remesh. Make sure to have your model selected, and you'll notice that it's selected by this orange outline it'll have. Go ahead and choose smooth for this process, which is going to break our model down into a very simple poly shape. As we increase the octree depth, or the subdivision modifier here, you'll notice it have more and more detail. I usually stop around 8 or 9, but now you can see we've got more detail. It doesn't look as blocky as before. When remodifying, I encourage you to have these statistics for the number of vertices and faces so that you can see how it's going to affect your model. You can bring up the information on those vertices by going up to this viewport overlays, click on it, and go down to statistics and click off statistics. Over here on the left side of your model, you'll be able to see the number of vertices. Here we have 400,000, 900,000 edges, 450,000 faces. The model is looking pretty good and pretty detailed. The smaller it's printed, the better it's going to look. Now let's go ahead and get this ready for 3D printing, since this face at the bottom is not flat, and that will cause supporting issues in your slicer. To do that, we need to first apply all the modifiers that we've given the object. So let's go ahead and go to this drop down menu on your modifiers and click apply. It could take a while depending on how many vertices you have and how detailed the model is. After that, we're going to go to 3D print, which is the add-on we spoke about in the first video. Again, please go watch that video if you haven't gotten there yet. And let's click make manifold. It's going to figure out if there's any floating vertices, which there were here at the bottom. You can see it's subtracted around 200 of them. We want to go ahead and keep clicking make manifold until all of the statistics are shown as 0. 0 vertices, 0 edges, 0 faces have been changed. So that means our model is now watertight and ready for the next step. You can often fix those manifold issues manually, but it can take a long time, and this way isn't perfect every time, but this can help you 100% of the time. The next step is we're going to flatten this face. By flattening this face, it's going to give us a really easy face to lay on during printing, and it's going to just reduce this side to a single face so that we're not worried about flattening all of these hundreds of thousands of faces. Trying to flatten so many faces at once would be an incredibly hard task. So we're going to go ahead and do this the easy way, which is simply by cutting a new face into it. We're going to click on the background of your viewport and hit add, mesh, and a cube while you're in object mode. And we're going to go ahead and hit S to scale and just start scaling up our cube. And we're going to go into wireframe mode so we can see everything in a sort of like X-ray view. We're going to bring our box down until it's covering all of the bottom and all of the overhangs. When you see this shape here, this curve, this is a bit of an overhang that the computer will have to deal with, and your printer is going to have to add support so that this isn't an issue printing. So we're going to go ahead and drag our cube upwards in the Z direction. You can do that by either hitting G and Z or G and middle mouse button while you drag in that general direction. As you can see, if I hit G and Z, it'll go up. But if I hit G and middle mouse, I can make it go in the Z direction. I can make it go in the Y direction. I can make it go in the X direction. Click your right mouse button to cancel that movement. Now that I've dragged this up a little bit more, you can see that the overhang is a lot less severe, but that does mean we're cutting off more from the bottom. Let's go ahead and go into wireframe so we can see how much we're cutting off. In the previous video, I showed you a simple add-on for measure. You can go ahead and use the measure tool to measure things like how much are we cutting off here. We're going to cut off about 5 or 6 millimeters from the bottom, which is plenty. Looking around to double check the cut, making sure our model is within the cube. We're ready to go. Make sure your cube is selected, hold shift, and then select the model you're going to cut. Go to your edit tab and hit difference. And now you can see that it has sliced the bottom very flat. And we'll go into solid mode so you can see what it looks like. So this is what it looks like when it's sliced flat. And if we go into edit mode and face mode, you can see that the entire bottom is now a single face. This makes it much easier for printing on many surfaces, either FDM printing or resin printing. This can be critical. Although with resin printing, sometimes you like to have it elevated and have support reaching out to it. Going back into object mode, we're going to once again make sure that this is a manifold object. So we're going to go down to 3D printing here, just right above my camera, and select make manifold. Once again, the make manifold has made some changes to the model, and this time it's a lot less. So let's go ahead and hit it one more time to make sure that we're getting our 000. And that's it. We're ready to have this placed on a slicer for 3D printing. Now, the slicer I use is a Bamboo Studio slicer, although you can use Cura or Prusa. It's all going to be very similar. Even if you're using a resin printer, you can use Chitubox, which is the one that I like to use for my resin printers. But we're going to go ahead and open this up and lay this flat on the build plate so you can see how easy it is. Oftentimes you can just use the automatic laying feature, and the slicer will determine which side of the model is easiest to print on just by clicking that auto button. We're gonna go to prepare here to make sure that we've got our slicer ready, and we will export this object. Make sure that your object is selected. Go over to our 3D print tab, and down in your 3D print tab, make sure your file is going to the right location by either saving or clicking this file button and making sure that the file pathway is correct. Since my file is not saved, I'm going to go ahead and click save as, and just save this to my computer's desktop. Although I encourage you to create a dedicated file so that your projects are nice and organized and you know where to get them. Now that it's saved, I'll go ahead and make sure by clicking Control S and then clicking export. Now that it's saved to my desktop, you can go ahead and either open it from file, or you can go ahead and just drag it from your desktop. Okay, here we have our model, and you can see it's quite large. This is printing on the H2D, which is a slightly large printer, but we can scale this way down, either by grabbing it and hitting S, or going to your scale tab and scale it down. We're only going to want this about 25%, and that really makes it look nice and smooth. Now the object has been orientated for us already, but as I was mentioning, you can go to auto orientate in the corner. It will place this on an edge in a direction where it thinks it's optimal. You can also click the model and click lay on faces, and the model will be shown with many faces that the slicer will tell you it's possible to lay on. You can click on these faces and print it laying down, but this is not optimal, and it's better if it's on this large flat face that we've already created. You can see it's highlighted as it's an entirely flat face. Let's go ahead and undo so that our model is facing forward, since that's how I like my models printed. And we're gonna go ahead and get him ready for printing. The first thing that we'll do is work from left to right on the slicer to make sure that we've got all our settings right. Quality at 0.2 layer height, which is mostly standard for 3D printing. You can go lower than that, and that will give you more definition and more detail on your model, but this is just about good enough for us. We're going to go to strength, and by default we have 2 wall loops. Wall loops are the number of perimeters your printer is going to take to generate your item. We're going to increase the number of wall loops, since occasionally if walls are too thin, they'll won't appear or they'll collapse into each other when there's a lot of detail associated with the model. We're going to go to speed and keep that the same, and support enabled. Enabling support here is obviously crucial, since we have overhangs like the model's arm, his sword, and his jacket. I like to use the tree type for models like this. You can also use the normal type, and each are optimal in their certain circumstances. You just have to use your best judgment. I'm going to go ahead and click slice plate, where our model is going to be generated with the support necessary to get the printer to print all this detail. Now before I print, I'm going to go ahead and go into my devices. I'm going to make sure that I'm printing with the correct material and on the correct printer. Here you can see that I'm on my mini printer, so we need to go ahead and move to our H2D, and always double check that the filament you want printing is indeed printing. I can't tell you how many times I've started a print with the wrong filament. Gonna go ahead and click slice once again. Make sure our support is in the right places. And then go ahead and just hit print plate. And send. Okay, the print is complete. Let's go ahead and pull it off of the bed. There's a little bit of cleanup to do. You can see it is a good print, and the bottom is flat, which is why it printed successfully. So as you just saw, we have a successful print. It's a tiny one, but it did really well. The bottom is flat, just as we intended for a model, which is critical for FDM prints. So thanks for joining us. I hope you guys learned something, how to take a high definition scan from basically an unprintable model to something that could be printed pretty easily. Now this did have some supports. In the future, I may show you how to break a model apart so that you don't have to deal with that at all. But this is a really good skill to have if you're doing anything like Warhammer or other figurines, or any kind of scans at all that you may want to replicate and make sales of. This is the way to do it if you're going to be doing something that you want to duplicate and semi-mass produce, which these days is pretty easy with a 3D printer. So thank you so much for joining us again. I really appreciate it. If you haven't watched the last video where I explained the add-ons critical to doing this, go ahead and watch it. Leave a like, comment, what you'd like to see next. Over time, I will continue to add to this tutorial on how to 3D print using Blender, but the more advanced videos like where to get prints and how to model from scratch is going to be on the paid tier list on our lab members. This tutorial, being the lab assistant members, is free and open to absolutely anybody who wants to learn the basics of 3D printing using free open source softwares like Blender and their add-ons that come with it. The paid tier will also focus on free and open source software, as well as free and open add-ons, but that's where you're really going to go in depth about how to model things from scratch and how to solve real world problems. And as you know, if you find out how to solve your own problems, usually there's a lot of people who have the same problem, so you can definitely make money from that if you're interested in kicking off your 3D printing business or journey. So please join me for that. I appreciate the support. Please leave a like and subscribe. It costs you nothing. I'll see you lab members in the next video.